back and bigger than ever. It's the unofficial 40 from Soonerscoop.com. Now, here's the entire Sooner Scoop crew. Carrie, Josh, Eddie, and Bob.
All right, we are back. It is the unofficial 40 podcast right here on Soonerscoop.com. Late start this week. We apologize, but well, not late start, late finish, I guess we should say, is the Big 12 Media Days have been going on. The guys have been down in Arlington. Had lots of stuff going on here at the office, which I will tell you about here in just a little bit. But Josh is taking a little mini vacay. He may join us here in just a little bit to talk about the latest commitment, Jaden Johnson from Jackson from IMGC. That's I sent out the tweet. So
J&J. It's J&J.
J&J.
And Mitchell. We haven't talked about Mitchell.
And Mitchell. But anyway, maybe Josh will come along in just a little bit. If not, no big deal. Well, I mean, it's a big deal.
Well, there will be
the
people that
podcast
think
will
that's
still
a
be
big deal.
good. I mean, regardless of whether Josh is here or not.
It's a big deal.
So, anyway, things are hopping in the office. We got the new carpet last weekend. I have destroyed George Stoya's confidence in his Galaga game. Did he brag about that on the pod? I can't remember.
I can't remember.
I'm coming for you, Carrie.
I just want you to know, yesterday...
Be spending late nights up here working on my game.
He's not working. He's just playing Galaga.
I'm going to take all that video footage and put it online of you just playing Galaga because there's a camera right there, security camera.
Be a Twitch star before you know it.
So we got the Galaga Miss Pac-Man. I've almost got the Star Wars finished. I think I'm 20 minutes from having the Star Wars put together.
Those things are a bitch to put together.
They are. George is my best friend. He's helping me put things together.
But I just stood there and watched and handed you tools or held things up. You did it all.
I felt like I had a son for the first time in my life. a no good, doesn't know how to do anything son standing there watching his dad put together something.
Yeah.
That played out a lot in real life, too, didn't it, at your house?
It did. Sorry, Dad. I didn't help. I will say I was great at mowing the lawn.
Yeah. Hey, there you go.
And I do
and
enjoy
you have all your
doing
fingers
that.
still.
Yeah, but putting things together is not really my thing.
But, I mean, I thought it was like we had one day, the carpet was finally done, and we were sitting here in the office, and it was so hot. It's been so miserable outside. And I was like, George, I thought George needed to pick me up. Kind of like Eddie the other day. Eddie had like a migraine, and George and I both knew something was wrong, and we were like, are you okay? He's like, I'm fine. But then you wouldn't talk to anybody. So something was definitely wrong with you. I hope you feel better now.
I do feel better.
So I was like, George needs to pick me up. George, you want to put the Galaga? And it was like, you let a puppy into the house.
I jumped out of my seat.
He was like, yes, let's put it together.
Yeah.
And he was so excited to play, and he
and
bragged about how good he was for so long. And he guaranteed he was the best Galaga player in the office. He's not good at all. Even for a 13-year-old, he's bad at Galaga.
But 13-year-olds are probably better just because we didn't. I hesitate now when I play old school video games.
I guarantee you, though, if you round up all the 27-year-olds in the world, I am somewhere in the top 100.
The Soonerscoop.com presents the Galaga 27-year-old bracket tournament.
That's going to be the new thing. People are going to say, can I come to the office and challenge George and Galaga?
Yeah, for a nominal price.
Right.
Absolutely. You can come in, do whatever.
We got carpet to pay for, exactly. So, no, it's been a lot of fun. You guys went down to Arlington. I really don't even need to be here today because you guys can carry this bitch all yourselves. But the last couple of days in Arlington, can I just say that Mike Gundy with the silver beard and the dyed hair, he looks like the villain in every small town that goes in. Like in Stillwater, I bet he goes to the Wooden Nickel and makes them pay like a protection fee every month.
They pay
and
him.
Threatens to burn it down if they don't.
I think that'd be pretty badass if that was the case. He's living his best life right now.
He's so angry. I mean, I don't know what his deal is.
I think he's comfortable with kind of being the
well, yeah, he could be
crotchety old guy.
He can be the bully now because he's not going to have to play Oklahoma anymore.
I think
except for this year.
I think there's part of that is definitely in there.
What is he, 3-13?
3 and
15. I think he just doesn't give a shit anymore.
Yeah.
And he's not.
He's a little bit more upfront about it nowadays.
But I mean, it's not like he fixed everything. He still
Right, that's what I was gonna
still
say.
lost all those players.
How's that going to help recruiting if that's your attitude?
But is he going to get fired?
No.
They're not going to fire him.
Carson,
I don't think.
Carson Cunningham or somebody would be a little bit more able to talk about this, but it feels like when he knows that they're going to go into a season where there's a lot of question marks, he starts acting like this a little bit.
He's showing confidence.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. I mean, they lost so many guys.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens in Stillwater. Just as
If
much
Alan
as
Bowman gets
like,
hurt again, I mean...
I think that was like one of the biggest talking points, and just talking to guys, other media members down in Dallas over the last 2 days is, there's not a great team in this conference right now.
No.
It's sort of kind of wide open just as far as like Texas should be good. Oklahoma should rebound and bounce back. But
you know what happened yesterday? It was everybody was trying to, like, because Joey McGuire, people were asking him about could you win the conference and things like that, and he didn't back down really from those expectations. But people are like, could Texas Tech actually win this conference? And some people are like, sure, yeah, why not?
Why not?
do you think that there would be as much, I was thinking about this on the way home last night, would there be as much buzz about Tech if Joey McGuire wasn't so GD likable?
Yeah, maybe
like,
not.
Do they get a little bit of a, I don't want to say a pass by any means, but do they get a little bit of a kickstart because Joey McGuire is just so awesome?
Also, are we talking about Texas Tech this way if OU doesn't screw around and just win that game at the end of the season? I mean,
Sure.
I think the way that the season ended for OU,
They beat OU in Texas last year. I mean,
Yeah.
that's a fact.
I mean, I think it's the
And
same
Ole
thing.
Miss in the bowl game.
Yeah.
I think it's the same thing that we talk about
Their
Oklahoma
ass too. And I do think that Tech could be pretty good.
You'll get to talk, George.
I was just going to say, I think it's the same, perception about Oklahoma. And look, your record is what it says it is, right? But I think that the way that the season ended, everybody has this perception of what Oklahoma's going to be this year. And, a couple plays here, a couple plays there. And Brent talked about that, and maybe those are excuses, but I think that you could say that about Oklahoma too.
It's interesting how that narrative is. Like, we've talked about it on the pod before, just as far as, you look at the way that Oklahoma lost the games, the 5 of the 7 losses coming on the final possession or with under 2 minutes left. You're truly talking about a play here and a play there that separates, like, it's so cliche, right? That, small things add up and you end up losing games because of it. But that was kind of Oklahoma season in a nutshell.
I thought that was Clark Foy on Rachel Ray there for a moment. Looks just like him.
I didn't see it.
He's
Yeah, a little bit. A little bit. I see that.
Well, don't ask me why Rachel Ray is on The Office. I know why, because I watch 5 and 4 for the news in the morning.
News is coming on at noon.
Yeah.
also got tennis for Bob.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah. Although I don't think anybody's stopping.
Who was
Joe
the-
Quebec. He's just killing everyone.
Who was the tennis player that I said last week? I was like, I don't even know who that is. And you guys were like, that's the greatest tennis player of all time.
I think it was Joe.
Oh, Pete Sampras.
No, I knew Djokovic.
He didn't know who Pete
Sampras
Sampras was.
George
No.
Stoya had no idea. He'd never heard of Pete Sampras.
And you know what? You guys can, if you everybody can come at me online, on the board. Bob, you can call me an idiot. I don't care. I don't watch tennis. It's not for me.
I don't think that you have to watch tennis necessarily to. That's like that's like not knowing who.
Chichi Rodriguez is?
Maybe somebody even maybe a little bit more accomplished. Like,
No, Chichi Rodriguez.
would it be like Arnold Palmer?
I mean, he's the greatest American player ever. There's no question about that.
Yeah,
Even
I
I
just-
loved Agassi. He
don't
could never
care.
beat Pete. So, I mean, Pete is the best
Pete
ever.
Here's the thing that you need
Andre
to know about Pete
Agassi
Sampras.
loved ice, didn't he?
Yeah,
Pete
he
Sampras
did.
was the most boring superstar
Yes.
in the history of sports.
Until Duncan.
Yeah. Tim Duncan took the crown.
Side by side.
You know what I think it is? I had a babysitter when I was a kid, and she was an old woman, and she would just watch tennis, and we could not watch what we wanted to watch as kids.
What a bitch.
I know, and
So
so
you
I
grew a
just
hatred
I
for
just
tennis.
hated it, and I was just like, this is the worst, and it was so boring. I was like, why are we watching this? So
How much tennis were they showing when you
Mrs.
were growing up?
McAllister, which she was a very sweet lady. My parents would be like, I can't believe you talked shit on Mrs. McAllister. She was very nice. She
We
is
love
a very,
her.
Yeah,
We
she-
love her. We
but
say that affectionately.
She watched a terrible sport. Sorry, Bob.
Damn.
I'm out.
Right during
See you guys.
Wimbledon, during the second semifinal in Wimbledon, you're dropping these bombs.
So the things you learn in the office, it's fantastic. So let me ask you guys, how did Texas come off on day one?
I thought Texas So obviously I have not been to Big 12 Media Days in some time. So the last time I was there Tom Herman was the guy.
Mm-hmm.
And
don't Eddie.
And when he would speak, he was just so arrogant at times that it was just like I couldn't take the guy seriously. So I think Sark says the right things, and I think that I think they have the right attitude. At least, I listened to Quinn Ewers for a long time during his breakout session. He's a quiet guy. He's not someone who's, I think flashy in a lot of ways. I think they came off well. I just don't know how good the defense is going to be, but I think Sark handles it as well as any other coach that got up there. I will say I think the Big 12 just has a good group of coaches, but I thought they came off well. Look, they've got a lot of expectations there, and right now I think they are the favorite to win, in my opinion, and that's who I would pick. I just don't know what the defense looks like, but they do have some weapons, and I think Sark. I do think that they're heading in the right direction under Sark. I just don't know how much patience that fan base and some of the people
and the donors,
Yep.
the people that have control there. Because I think if they stick with him, it could end up working out. I just don't know if they will.
This might be, I don't know, kind of crass or callous or whatever with Sark, but and this is not meant to be a shot, but you can really tell, he's a guy that's been through some shit.
Yeah.
And he's done a lot of therapy, I'm sure. It's a lot of therapy talk when you hear, you can tell he's had to rebuild himself, and he's kind of used certain things because he brings up, he kind of brings up how to live life as much as he does about how to play football or how to get yourself, to a place of success almost.
Yeah, and I think the biggest difference...
Maybe that's what they need.
Yeah, well, and I was just going to say, I think he just, he seems more genuine and, actually a decent guy, whereas Tom Herman just came off as, a dick. I didn't...
kissing and all that.
Yeah, I just didn't like that.
Don't do it, Eddie.
Where Sark was just... I don't know. I think Sark is just more genuine in his approach, and I think they do need that. I just don't know, again, how the fan base reacts. And they got to... I mean... We talk about the pressure on Oklahoma. If Texas doesn't win 10 games this year and go to they might have to win the Big 12 title for them,
especially being voted the favorite to go into the
season.
So
the pressure is just as much on them as anyone else in the conference.
I talked to a couple Texas reporters while we were down there, and obviously we talked about Oklahoma and everything and how pivotal year number 2 is for Brent.
Ian Boyd?
No, I did talk to Ian though.
Sat right in front of us.
Yeah, what a lovely guy. It was interesting though to see just kind of their feeling on the quarterback position and what happens if Quinn Ewers doesn't take that next step.
Yeah.
I don't think that it's necessarily a thing where they just hand the reins to
Arch.
I think that the Malik kid, they feel like he could be really, really good.
Well, he was the best looking guy in the spring, which doesn't mean a whole lot.
That picture of him with all the guys. That shirtless pic that the Texas quarterbacks posted, he looks
Malik
massive.
Murphy is a massive dude.
Yeah.
I mean, is he 6'6"?
I don't know,
He's
but
a big dude.
I mean,
Quinn Ewers isn't a small guy by any means.
No. But I will say, though, he doesn't look like the part either. If he walked in, I would just think he's some cowboy off the street.
He's listed at 6'5", 238. I mean, he's a very well put together guy. And just coming out of spring, it sounds like he would probably be the backup if the season started today.
Well, and that's the other thing about Texas is as you mentioned, Quinn Ewers, if he gets off to a slow start, not only is your coach under pressure, but the players then become under pressure because the coach knows if I don't do something quick, these donors are going to get rid of my ass.
It feels like too for them, their season. I mean, obviously one game doesn't define your season, but going to Alabama and playing well like they did last year at home, if they can go in there and play that game even within 2 scores, right? I think that they can build off that. Now, if they go in there and they just get crushed, I think their season could also just totally go off the rails.
If they get crushed, that's when the Quinn chatter starts.
Right.
And that's the one concern I'd have about Texas.
And the fan base is not going to. I mean, it's one thing for what the coaching staff is going to do as far as quarterbacks if Ewers doesn't work out. But the fans are not going to accept anything but Arch Manning. I mean, they will lose their shit if they go to a different quarterback besides Arch Manning.
Their schedule is also, I think, considerably harder than OU's
Georgia.
in the conference. I'm talking about Texas.
Oh,
This year.
Oh, I'm thinking SEC all of a sudden. Yeah.
Yeah, no, Texas. Yeah,
I've moved on. We got through Big 12 media days.
That's a good
one.
mentality
It's
to
over.
have.
yeah.
I'm trying to get SEC ready. Damn it.
But they have to go at Baylor. I think that could be a tough game. At Houston, I don't think Houston's going to be very good. But BYU at home, Kansas State at home, at TCU, at Iowa State, Texas Tech at home. I mean, those are some tough games. And I whereas I think OU's schedule is pretty
Cakewalk.
favorable.
Yeah.
So again, if they go to Alabama and get crushed, and then they turn around 2 weeks later and play at Baylor, then 2 weeks later, and then they play Kansas at home, who I think Kansas is going to be a tough out, and then they turn around and play Oklahoma. That's a tough stretch.
I was pretty impressed by Lance Leopold, and obviously we talked about that on Tuesday evening, George. I do think, though, that what he said as far as they could be better and have a worse record is very applicable in a way.
Yeah.
Like I think that they could still be really, really good or better on quote-unquote Kansas standards, but not as good with a record-wise.
And the team that no one's talking about is the defending Big 12 champions is Kansas State. It seems like no one was talking about them all week. I mean, they could be very good. I mean,
what did Pete Thamel put out there this week? That I think it was something along the lines of the returning 161 starts on the offensive line, which shouldn't be a surprise.
Were they 8th or 9th in the preseason?
8th, I think, last year.
No,
this year they're second.
This year.
Kansas State's second. They were voted second.
Oh, no, I thought you said Kansas.
Oh no, Kansas was
Yeah.
7th or 8th,
Something
maybe?
like that, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kansas is. I mean, they apparently lost a lot on defense, but
They were bad on defense, anyways.
Yeah, they were
last
bad
year.
on defense, so I don't know if that matters, but I don't know.
Here's my takeaway. If we want to get into OU and what they said,
Yeah.
I'm officially drinking the Brent Venables Kool-Aid.
Oh no.
I walked out of there,
Not
and
to
it's
say
not
that we aren't.
It's
but-
not to say, and it's not like as if anything he said. I do think he said the right things, and we've talked about this a million times. He does seem to always say the right things, but just their tone, I thought, was the right tone, and also talking to other people, around the program yesterday, and just being there, it felt like they are heading in the right direction in terms of what they're doing.
You know what I think happened to you, George? You came out of there with a different perspective, a fresh perspective.
Yes.
Like the one that Enjoy Vision gives you. And this is the Enjoy Fresh Perspective look around, as we're going to start talking about OU's day at Big 12 Media Days. And someone else with even better vision is our own Eddie Radosevich.
Have I
thanks
ever
to
told you about
Enjoy
these
Vision.
people, these fine folks at Enjoy Vision?
I don't know.
It's the best.
Refresh my memory.
Gary, it's the best laser vision center in Oklahoma City. And it's not even close. The combination of mind-blowing technology, experienced eyeball surgeons, and exceptional patient care was life-changing. What you need to do, if you're the U40 listener, they're doing a special promo. I don't know if I've ever told anybody about this. $400 off for the unofficial 40 listener if you're interested in getting LASIK. All you got to do is go to enjoywithme.com. That is the letter N, J-O-Y, withme.com. Use promo code U40. You get $400 off LASIK. Enjoy Vision. This is where you LASIK.
Eddie also spokesperson, commercial. I saw the commercial the other day online. Nice job.
Our friends over at Quick Trip. Oh, the Enjoy Vision.
Enjoy. Yeah, enjoy.
I thought you were talking about, no.
You have too many sponsorships, I guess.
Sellout. He's a sellout.
Believe me, I'm ready. I went up to Enjoy, went back up to the offices during, I don't know, it was a couple weeks ago, and we put that together with Tanner and the boys over there. So it was a lot of fun.
Okay, so Oklahoma had their day yesterday. I think one of the things, like, if you were at home, you got to see the coaches' press conferences, which, it's 15 minutes. It's not a whole lot. But later in the day...
It is funny on, like, the podium stuff.
Uh-huh.
I think people have just decided, like, we don't need this. That's for everybody else.
Whoever these
It's
people
for
The only people
everybody
left
else.
were the podcasters. Those were the only guys
I
asking
will say I
questions.
raised my hand, and they didn't give me the mic for that. But I did get a question into your mark. But you're talking about for the coaches. Yeah,
Yeah, for
I
the
did raise
coaches.
my hand, and they just never gave
For
me
Brent.
the mic.
You were
Yeah.
with Hall of Fame media.
Yeah. So
Which
But
I
You didn't
don't
have
know
dinner
what
with
that
Stephen
is.
Coleman last night. So
Yeah,
they were
Cl-
like-
I know. What the hell?
Clearly. All right, go ahead. OU stuff.
No, but I was talking about the part that people don't really get to see, and you guys have written stories on it. And I don't know what you want to go to first, George, either.
Oh, boy.
It's Josh
We have a
McQuiston.
special guest, a special surprise visitor
I almost hung up on
joining
him.
the program.
Josh McQuiston is joining us, and we have to announce you, Josh, because you interrupted the pod with your Skype session.
You told me to call in if I wanted to listen, and of course I want to listen.
I told you at 11:37. It is now noon.
Well, I mean, I thought the pod was starting at 11, so let's not get too caught up on the timeliness of everything.
Oh, it's partly Eddie's fault. He was a little lagging.
I had to take a shower. You don't understand how just
He's been
sticky
lugging
and nasty.
grimy.
In his defense, he's been lugging a lot of equipment around the last couple of days.
And that's totally okay. I'm not against any of that. I'm just saying, we're all good. No big deal. I do apologize for interrupting. I'm sure it was a wonderful point I got in the middle of.
Special shout out to Joni with the Big 12 because I got there a little bit late on Tuesday and they'd stopped passing out credentials and they weren't going to let me in. And so I was like, well, damn, what am I going to do for the next 8 hours? And so I texted Joni and was like, hey, I had radio this morning. Can you let me in? She's like, yeah, I'll send somebody up. So it made me feel good.
Yeah, I think
We have
Jody
that kind of
likes
pool.
us.
Yeah, we have that kind of pool around there.
I think she's a University of Oklahoma graduate.
I believe that's correct. She's always been great to
Yeah,
us,
she's
though.
awesome.
She has been.
It was sad in a way, and we'll get to the OU stuff, I know, but
Just the last run.
yeah, walking out of there, I was like, damn,
It's
never
all-
coming back here for this.
It's sad, but it was also I'm curious to see what it looks like next year because
OU and Texas have all the media.
All the media.
There was
Yep.
a moment yesterday I counted right before the breakout session started. There was 25 tripods set up in front of OU's media breakout session. There was one set up for Iowa State, and I was just like, "This is sad," And it was the same way for Texas the day before, and
Probably
Oklahoma
one
State.
in 8 students. That's the sad part.
Yeah, just grinding.
And Oklahoma State had a nice setup because obviously there was a lot of Oklahoma media there.
Sure.
But I would assume them and maybe TCU will be the biggest media contingents going forward because obviously TCU it's right there.
No, TCU does not have a big media contingent,
Just
even though it's
doesn't.
in Fort Worth.
But I mean I don't know. I
The
just
Fort Worth Star Telegram has basically been on. The one dude was like Killers Frogs podcast where we kill Big 12 members.com.
yeah.
It was I don't know if you saw that, Josh, but it was the weirdest name for someone to give out their affiliation.
That was one of those things where
And he's wearing
there's no
purple.
way to abbreviate that. Just keep it. Can we minimize that a little bit?
I mean, it is the podcast people. They might just need to issue credentials for people allowed to ask questions. Because look, we're a podcast. We're not that bad. I mean, there's a reason we have a really good podcast.
Did you know that? And we'll find out next week at SEC Media Days. But I found out this week that that's open to the fans. Media Days, SEC Media Days.
Well, they
can't come
the
in and ask
lobby.
questions.
Yeah.
Yeah, but I'm assuming.
Oh, it always has been.
Yes.
But
Always
I'm
has
also
been.
assuming though that there's people credentialed at that too that are crazy.
Oh yeah, there's. I mean, you've been in Arkansas.
Yeah, they're crazy.
I mean, I'll say this: when OU, Eddie, do you remember this? When OU played A&M in the Cotton Bowl, Johnny Manziel, A&M fans were showing up outside of the meet, and they don't announce that stuff. But it's
I think that
they felt
might
like
have
because
been-
they're in the SEC now that they have to do that.
It was a little bit different though with the mania that was around Johnny.
Yes.
That was
Yeah.
insane. I've seen some crazy media scrums and stuff like that, but that was when
got in
I was
Time
in the
magazine.
Time magazine.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was
Or at
that
least
was
our Mike flag got in Time magazine.
I was standing there. Yeah. That was crazy.
Yeah, that was. I do remember. I've seen a lot of shit, and this is close to the top.
Yeah. That was pretty insane. But yeah. Let's talk OU.
So, anyway, what we were kind of getting to is the breakout sessions, which happens later in the day. You guys get a chance to. I know Bob basically got a one-on-one with Jonah Lalu because everybody rushed to Dylan Gabriel and Danny Stutzman, and
A lot of people were just burnt out at that point because of the setup just being so terrible.
Eddie was telling me how bad it was.
so awful. It just was.
Just never been at a place where the setup was terrible, and then at AT&T Stadium the internet was awful.
Awful.
So bad.
You couldn't you literally couldn't put up a everybody was having to use hotspots. And so that's why I was like, well, I'm going to just drive home and put everything up because it was almost impossible.
But the way it was set up, for those that don't know, with these breakouts, Brent was on a mic, which was fantastic. But then there's a player next to him that even if you're like sitting 10 feet away, you can't even hear what he's saying. I don't have a clue. I haven't listened to a minute of what Dylan Gabriel and Drake Stoops and Danny Stutzman said because they weren't on a mic. But then Brent left, Jonah came in, and so many people were just discouraged by the setup. They left. And I just talked to Jonah about his weight gain and how everything's going, and really good talk.
It was interesting to me, a couple things with Jonah Laulu. He definitely has become something of a leader. He's obviously a very good talker. I think he's great with the media. His interview session was actually probably one of the best ones of the day, just as far
I'm
as
going to give
him
myself
talking
credit then.
and giving really good answers,
he
talking
did.
about kind of becoming a leader within the team. Adding 30 pounds, showing up at 260, he's at 293 now. He looks good too.
Yeah, he mentioned
he carries it well.
He mentioned that this had been in the works. Like I asked him, give us the exact timeline. Like when you were starting going to Cheez-It Bowl prep, did you know you were already being moved inside? And he said by last August, last camp, they knew that they wanted to move him because he couldn't get off blocks. He couldn't set the edge. It's like he needed to change what his game was doing, and so they knew that going into this year he'd move inside, he'd put on the weight, put it on properly, which of course is one of the biggest things, right? It's not about putting on the weight, it's about doing it in a smart way so that you're still as fast or as explosive as you used to be, but now you're covering up the weaknesses that you had in the strength department, and you can just hear that he's very happy with how this process has gone, and he understands his role in mentoring guys like an Ashton Sanders or a Marcus Strong in terms of learning this position.
That was, and it kind of coincides with Danny Stutzman, just as far as I think that was like one of the big, they talked about competitive depth a lot on the defensive side of the football, but I think one of the other things too was just a culture that Brent is trying to build, and I think that's kind of what you were alluding to, George, as far as guys that are able to get together during the summer and do their own shit when coaches aren't able to be around. And, how much does that go into, 12 Saturdays every fall? I don't know. But I do think that it seems like there was a massive, massive structure or a cultural overhaul that had to be done. And Brent every time that he talks more and more, you get the feeling that like when he arrived, it was almost like a holy shit, this thing's gotten really bad. It's almost more incredible. Like the further, I know I've said this before, but the further we get away from it, it's almost incredible that they were able to win so many games over the last, 4 or 5 years.
Yeah, and the word that Brent used over and over again yesterday was efficiency. And I think that you can point to several parts that you're going to see differently in the way that OU approaches things. I mean, I think that it's, from a standpoint of how they run practices and guys understanding what exactly they're supposed to be doing in their jobs and practices to what they do on the field. Now, I don't think they're going to change what they're doing schematically necessarily, but in terms of like the competitive depth that he was talking about, I think you are going to see more guys rotate in. I mean, I thought it was an interesting quote he had during the breakout saying that they probably should have played more young guys at times last year. And I think that that's something you'll see this year. I think you'll see them throw a Peyton Bowen out there who he said can help them immediately. I mean, a Petaway who he spoke really highly of. PJ Adebawore, I think he'll play. Like I think that they're going to be more active in doing that, and then also bringing in the guys that they did in the portal. Those guys are going to play. I mean, he raved about Connor Neer. Yeah. It sounds like he's a guy that could maybe start for them. So, I think that all those things play into it. And I don't think it's going to be something you notice where they're running out there and running a totally different offense or running a totally different defense. But in terms of day-to-day what they're doing, it sounds like they have found some things that will make the process smoother.
I mean, the thing that I'm most worried about is in terms of efficiency with this football team is how efficient is their meal prep at night? Because prime shrimp, that's an efficient meal, ladies and gentlemen. You take it out of the freezer, you put it in a bag of boiling water, less than 10 minutes, you got it on a plate, and you're having a restaurant quality meal. Go check them out, primeshrimp.com, Prime shrimp.com, and choose from all their great flavors. They've got the garlic herb butter shrimp, the New Orleans style barbecue shrimp, French Quarter Alfredo shrimp. Yes, I'm saying shrimp every time because I want to be like I'm in Forrest Gump. So lemon and cracked pepper shrimp. I mean, go check it out. Right now, use the promo code U40, and you can get 25% off your order of $50 or more in Prime Shrimp. So go check it out. Great meals, healthy. George loves him some shrimp. I promise I'm going to get some sent to you.
I love shrimp.
So anyway, go check them out. Great sponsors of the pod. Always thankful for their support. Primeshrimp.com. Use that promo code U40 and get 25% off your order of $50 or more on your next order. Okay, back to kind of the Stutzman stuff. I mean, I saw a lot of his interviews that were floating around out there. Crazy hair, yes. Do you buy that he is a different person, that he's going to be a changed man? And maybe this is a question more for Eddie and Bob after. And I always felt bad for him because I don't know what else he was supposed to do last year. But I know the fans got sick and tired of hearing we're just we're close, but they wanted to see emotion out of him, like he was pissed off because they weren't playing well, and it was always calm. It almost seemed like he was trolling a little bit at times.
I think I'm somewhere in between I think that the light has turned on a little bit for him. I think the game was coming easier to him at the end of the season, obviously. I mean,
played really well in the bowl game.
The one thing that you and he even said the Tech game was one of those games that things started to slow down for him a little bit. And I think that there is just a sense of maturity that comes with being in your third year at Oklahoma or in the third year at college. But at the same time, I don't know. I think he's always going to be a little bit of a character. That's just his personality.
And he needs to keep that.
Yeah.
He just needs to incorporate the other parts of it.
Right. And that's why,
but you never saw that in the post game because he was getting asked, why do you guys still suck?
Sure.
Why isn't it getting better?
And I think back to a lot of that stuff at the end of the year last year and, throughout the season too. And, I think Teddy Lehman said it a couple times on the Oklahoma Breakdown as well, that I think because he played so much as a freshman and because he had turned into a bigger role as a sophomore, you just automatically thought that, well, this thing's going to come easy to him. And in reality, he was still learning a lot of the defense. And he talked about that yesterday, just as far as being able to get guys together during the summer and do their own study, do their own review, do their own, self-analysis kind of what they're trying to do, where they're trying to be as a defense. And I do think that, maybe it's just because I like Danny so much. I do think that he's going to turn into a really, really good player for Oklahoma. I mean, he has one of the things. I don't think there's
anybody in this room that is not rooting for him to become a star.
But I do think that he has one of those things that as a linebacker you have to have. And Josh, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. He's somebody that has a nose for the football. He just has a good instinct. He's a good football player. And if he can make that next jump, it's going to be rather, I think it'll come easier to him as he continues to progress and mature.
Yeah, Eddie, I mean, you go back to high school. This is something, Danny is just around the football. He just kind of is one of those guys that even when you would watch him and realize, okay, this has got to be fixed, this has got to be better, his hands aren't where they need to be, he's not as strong as he needs to be, he would just find a way to be there. Like I said, I think what gets underrated with him a lot is he is a lot more physically talented than I think people believe. I think they see him as just kind of this big kind of, Danny eggs some of this on. So he's this big dopey guy that just kind of runs around and he's a good athlete, a really good athlete. And I don't think he gets credit for it sometimes. But I couldn't agree more that I think he has a real natural feel for it. I think that was probably why Brent pushed him so much early on, because Brent knew, if we can get this guy moving in the right direction and doing things the way we believe in them, there's no reason for him not to be a really successful guy.
And there's no doubt, Bob, that he is somebody that is completely bought in with Brent Venables.
Yeah, and Brent keeps challenging him. I mean, we've heard the story multiple times, right? Like Danny didn't ask for a playbook, he wasn't serious about the game, and then you get the question again yesterday about the maturation process and saying, 17 months ago, he couldn't do this. He couldn't lead. He wasn't capable of being in that spot. So Brent continues to put it on his shoulders. Like, we need you to be this guy. So it's not like a question like, if you're not ready to do it, this whole team is going to suffer and falter because of it. You need to turn that corner, and I believe you have it in you to do just that.
None of that's going to matter, though, for the linebacker core, especially if they don't get what they think they can get out of Isaiah Coe, Jordan Kelly, DJ Terry, who they talked a bunch yesterday.
A lot about. Yep.
Philip Paez obviously going to be out for a little bit with the knee injury. Just the list of guys that they would talk about, Jonah Lulu obviously moving inside. They need defensive linemen to be. I've said this before. They don't need to be all Big 12 guys, but they do need to be contributors that can run out there and give you something on the defensive line.
And I think they obviously added some depth there, and probably more than any other position. But I mean, I tweeted out the weight changes yesterday. They're also just bigger there. I mean, I tweeted it out. I mean, I think they have, 4 or 5 guys now over 300 pounds up front. And I think it was 9 guys put on at least 5 or more pounds. And then they have, I think, 13 of them at least put on 1 pound. So it's like they've really beefed up front. And that, I mean, Danny talked about that yesterday, is how much those guys in the middle will be able to clear up what they're doing at linebacker and go make some of those plays. So I think it all plays into that. And again, I think that's that competitive depth that he's talking about. They didn't have that last year. They didn't have the depth to rotate guys in and out like they do this year.
I hate to be this guy too, but I kind of thought about it just now as we were talking about him. You know what? The one guy that his name just was not brought up yesterday at all. And this is like one of the things that fans do. It's like, because somebody's name isn't mentioned,
I think
they always think that it's a name that like has just got lost in the abyss. But where's Reggie Grimes fit into this?
I put out my projected depth chart. I think it was 2 weeks ago, and I didn't have him on the 2 deep. I mean, I just don't know where he. Rondell Bothroyd's going to start, and I feel pretty confident about that. And I feel pretty confident Ethan Downs is going to start. And I know he may not start by the end of the season, but I think he starts game 1. And then all of a sudden you've got Trace Ford, who sounds like, he's doing great. R. Mason Thomas.
R. Mason and Trace are going to be your pass rushers.
Yeah. And then, I think
was it Jonah that was really talking up R. Mason yesterday?
Yes.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then you've got Adibare. I think he's going to find his way onto the field. I just don't know.
Did he come up much yesterday?
PJ?
Yeah.
I don't think Brent was asked about him. Brent was asked specifically. There was somebody there from
the Denton
area that was asking about Bowen
and Jackson, right?
Yeah,
but and based on who they brought, I don't know who could have really spoke a lot about PJ too.
He was on my list of people to ask, but it got to Brent was talking for 40 minutes, and it was just
they cut him off. They said that's it, he's done.
But I don't think that means that he's not going to play. But somebody for example, that's just a true freshman. He's only been on campus a few months. Reggie Grimes has been around forever. You would think that's a name that would come up, and it just didn't.
Honestly, it's a name a year ago that I would have said would have been in Dallas yesterday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
He just was so ineffective. I mean,
he was so good for the first 3 games, and then he just disappeared off the map.
When he had Nick Bonito out there on the field, I mean, he was pretty good.
I love the way that Brent sold the defense too, because I walked out of there thinking, of course they're going to be better going into year number 2, but I don't think that I realized they led the league in tackles for loss and interceptions, which is kind of crazy. Like the interception one, the tackles for loss, obviously they piled them up, but
CJ Colden was a huge difference maker.
Yeah, sure.
That's why I'm like, well, who's going to be that guy then? Because it wasn't the returning guys that were getting those picks.
Now, I mean, I heard him single out Woody Washington. Was there any singling out of corners?
Not from what I heard, unless something was said,
you couldn't
out
get
of the
that
breakout.
Typical, hey, give us an update on this position. It was just such a weird setup on trying to ask questions to Brent.
Something else that stood out to me yesterday is, and I don't think I've ever had I think it's probably the Clemson thing that he learned, but the way he described summer workouts, like player-led, practices and coach-driven periods or whatever, like you can tell that and I'd love to get more into this with him and maybe the players, wink, wink, George. but like, you know, how detailed that stuff is, because it's always been like, oh, it's volunteer practices. You know, the quarterbacks call the players and they get together and they go out and throw 7-on-7. But it sounds like there's a lot of structure from the inside to the summer practices when the coaches can't be with them.
I mean, the way that Danny talked about it yesterday, they're basically practicing. They're going through practices without
and the
coaches,
reason I noticed it
without helmets and all that kind of stuff.
Because you would have
obviously.
some of the other coaches. I think Mike Gundy is probably that does the whole. Well, you know, we can't see him, so we don't know until we get back. I mean,
well, and I don't think, and the indication was they weren't doing that last year because they couldn't. They didn't have the guys that could.
They
could
didn't
do
have that system installed,
right?
Yeah.
And so I think that again, that goes to the efficiency thing. I think that everything is going to just look cleaner because everybody's understanding. I mean, I asked Brent. The last question I asked him about, you know, jumping at Clemson, year 1 to year 2, they took a huge leap defensively. Like, what did they do in that time period? And he said, look, it's an 18-month process. Like, year 1 is so hard because there's so many things going on. You don't have the depth that you hope that you want, and you do all these different things, and guys don't understand the system. I think that you're going to see guys understand it better. Now, what does that look like on the field? We'll see. I mean, I'm starting to buy into it. Like I said earlier, I'm drinking the Kool-Aid. I walked out of there buying stock in Oklahoma. Now I'm not putting my life on it, but I do think we're going to see it improved. I just don't know how much. What is the improvement? Is it a big jump or is it a little jump?
He mentioned it during the walk-off, I believe, and I think he told Dave Wilson from ESPN the same thing during their one-on-one session. But Oklahoma has to figure out a way not to beat Oklahoma.
Yeah. I think the one thing about, you know, Oklahoma and the season and what they're going to do and how to, it's funny because like Big 12 Media Days, you don't realize until you see some of the questions asked or the things talked about, like how much everyone hates and is jealous of Oklahoma. And they love the fact that Oklahoma struggled last year.
Yeah.
And I think it's natural for people to say, well, they're done. They're not going to get any better.
Yeah.
Like, it's over. Brent Venables is over his head. It's just like that idiot deputy commissioner guy and the stuff that he said.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like, that's fanboy. That's fan fiction that you're rolling out right there. I mean,
I will say, like, I didn't know this until this morning, but he was the athletic director at Kansas State. He was talking to John Kurtz, who's a Kansas State guy. Mm-hmm. So there might have been a little bit.
Oh, well, no,
I don't think it was like tongue in cheek, but it was
that Kansas State water cooler,
right?
You know, kind of, you know, everybody gets together and they hate on somebody, or they have he's probably a guy that said, well, you know, Oklahoma, if they didn't cheat, they wouldn't be as good as they were, like that kind of thing.
It was the same thing that was, you know, probably back in the late 80s. Like people, and it's like Alabama or Georgia right now. People hate it. Mm-hmm. People hate when you're the big dog, and OU's been the big dog in the Big 12 for so long that I think it's only natural for somebody to develop a hatred because, you know, these guys always win.
Even your Mark had a little jab, right? Talking about celebrating OU Texas, but then saying, "Oh, they haven't carried us in recruiting. They haven't been in the championship game."
It was a question that he was out of his element in talking about, which is the overall recruiting in the conference. Yeah,
and then I asked him, what did I ask him? Oh, about, you know, how do you replicate what OU and Texas bring to the conference? And he, you know, had the line about the conference is bigger than any two schools, which. That's a good answer for him, but the honest truth is that OU and Texas have been the face,
the bell cows.
I mean, Joe Castiglione made a really good point to me yesterday in the interview about in the 27 years of the Big 12, OU has won 14 of the football conference championships. That's insane. And so when you have that and you have a program that's that dominant and they have a down year like last year, of course people are going to, you know, throw it in their face. And
you know what else OU and Texas did is they legitimized teams like TCU when they got into the fold of being in the national championship conversation. It wasn't so much, oh, well, look who they beat. It was, well, they beat OU badly. They beat Texas. Like that, it legitimized their candidacy to be a national championship.
Wasn't there a question thrown at Brent too about that TCU game?
Yes, because of the final home game,
and they're like, how bad they beat you guys last year, and Brent was like, yeah, we don't care.
Yeah,
I heard somebody ask him a similar thing about Texas, and you know,
in the walk off, and he's like, okay, that was last year.
What What about OU offensively? I know that we've talked a lot about them defensively, but obviously Dylan Gabriel going into his second season in Norman. The wide receiver position and listening to Drake talk about it. Of course, it's Big 12 media days and any type of media days in the middle of July is going to always for me be well, what do you want him to say? But I do think that if obviously Jalil Farouk's going to have to be a guy, but who else outside of that is going to be a difference maker? And you can go down the list that they all listed off yesterday, whether it be a Nick Anderson, Jaden Gibson, Andrell Anthony, Brennan Thompson, all these guys, but there's just nothing that I can sit here and say, yeah, he's going to be really, really good. It's just kind of a wait and hope and see.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was interesting that I think it was Brent was asked about the wide receiver room, and of course he just goes down the list and just names every receiver. So, and I think that's what it is right now. Is I think it's and that's not to say they don't have talent there. I think it's more so they don't know which guy it's going to be. Is it going to be Andrell Anthony? Is it going to be Petaway, who seems to come up a lot? It sounds like he's had a really good
When you got the
summer.
Texas transfer too.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Brennan
Brennan
Thompson.
Thompson.
So I think it's more so they just don't know, and maybe they don't have talent there. I don't know. I think that's just the biggest question mark is like what.
I think they have talent. It's just I don't think they have anyone better than Jalil Farouk.
They don't have anybody that's proven it either.
Right.
Yeah.
Are
they gonna have a bunch of guys just have like 15 to 25 catches, and they like no one that actually stands out as a number 2 guy?
And the other thing is, will Dylan Gabriel use a traditional tight end? Will he throw to him very much, or is Austin Stogner going to just turn into a blocker as the season goes along?
There's a lot of buzz about the Farouk. How do you say his last name?
The Lawton kid?
Yes,
Yeah.
the kid that's
Played
just
basketball
starting
at,
to play
He
football.
looked good in the spring game.
He did
Really
look good. He's athletic.
If I didn't know if they didn't have numbers at all, I would have said that looks like the most.
Yeah.
That guy has the most potential of anybody
We'll
out
see
there.
what
tight end.
Blake Smith can add to the mix,
but
but
he doesn't have a cast on his hand.
yeah,
He still catches touchdowns with it, so who cares?
it's just hard for me to sit here in the middle of July and say that obviously they're gonna miss Braden Willis, but it's just hard for me to say that any of those guys could truly be difference makers
I'll
when
say
you're sitting
this:
here and
we talked to Drake Stoops on the radio. I really got the sense like he's out to prove that he's an NFL guy this year.
Yeah,
Like
100%.
he's poised for a really big year.
He's working with Amendola, right, in the summer? Danny
I think
Amendola.
that's right. Yeah.
really, I didn't know that.
Yeah, I think he
They're-
said that on The Animal.
Oh,
I
okay.
saw that interview. Yeah, he's been working with Danny
Interesting.
Amendola down in Austin this
Yeah.
summer.
That's really interesting. I mean, he almost scoffed at somebody that asked him if he wants to get into coaching, which was a meaningless and harmless question. I think it was more like,
Yeah,
are you going to
he's
follow
like, I'm
your
still a
your family?
athlete,
And
yeah.
it was basically, he basically was like, yeah, I mean, that's something that I'll think about when I'm done playing. And it certainly wasn't, I got 12, 13 games left in my career type of deal.
I didn't really have a long time to talk to him. Like I would have loved to point out to him, like when he was in high school and Isaac and Drake would get interviewed, like Drake would never say anything. Isaac
Yes.
was like the spokesperson of the family. And now he's gotten so good at interviews. And I asked him what Isaac doing. I guess he's working an oil and gas job up in Oklahoma City. I think that's
awesome.
what he said. But out of coaching for now. I think he'll still get back into it at some point, though.
I can see that. It's hard to keep the Stoops boys off a football field,
Yeah.
I would imagine.
But no, I mean, that's one thing that I took from media day, and I wanted to put a little dig in there about, is Gavin Freeman coming for your job? But I didn't do it. But
And I think Gavin's going to be a great player. Like,
Yeah.
that speed, and
I think
he
those
showed
two
that he
will
can go
push
make
each other a lot.
They do,
this year.
and they're best friends. I think that they hang out quite a bit together, and it's going to be super interesting to me to see what that wide receiver unit looks like. I'm truly not worried about running back. I think it's going to be really, really good. Javonte Barnes is going to be great. I think Sawchuk's going to be really good. Caleb Hicks, Dalen Smothers, both of those guys seem to have bright futures. But at the same time, it's like, are we overlooking the fact that they have to replace 2 offensive tackles? And I know Tyler Guyton. I mean, Josh, I'll just throw you the softball. I know he's going to be extremely good someday. It just, I don't know. It's something that it worries you a little bit going into next year.
There's part of me that's like, would it be better for OU if Tyler Guyton's pretty good this year? and not great this year. Like, just to have him come back and you have some depth and you can kind of play around with where Caden Green's going to end up. But, I mean, it's a variable because, I mean, we've all seen Tyler Guyton do stuff that you're like, there's not many guys that have played here that can athletically do some of the things a guy his size can do. But then you flip it around and you're like, and then he kind of gets pushed around and all that stuff. But, I mean, the comments through the offseason, Jared Verse talking about Tyler Guyton being the best guy he faced all year. Jim Nagy from the Senior Bowl saying he's the best. He might be the best tackle on our board kind of thing. Like the people that believe in him are very high on him and very high on what he could be. But again, there's a part of me that's like, man, it would almost be better entering the SEC if this guy was, he came out of the year with like a 3rd round grade, and Bill and Brent can go to him and be like, look, man, you've got a chance to be a lot more than that, and can have that conversation with him. But I mean, he is, guys. There's I don't know about you guys, but I can't remember a team at Oklahoma that I've looked at that, depending on the day, I feel wildly different about a lot of different situations. Like, wide receiver, I think we're all pretty set on where that is. I think defensive back, I think we're all pretty set on that should be a pretty good group. But other than that, there's a lot of positions where I'm like, this could be anywhere from pretty good to really good, and I don't know which. And maybe in a few cases, there could be a real problem.
And that's what
well, I mean, and Walter Rouse too. I mean, we hadn't mentioned him.
Sure.
He makes it better. Yeah.
Trying to.
Real quick,
that's the biggest thing. The biggest takeaway from yesterday was Brent Venables saying Walter Rouse is full go. Okay, there you go.
Okay,
it has been since spring.
Yeah, the end of spring.
Yes. Yeah. Next time, I'm just going to get a box of dead Soxies for Bob to throw at people, and we won't let him talk. And I wanted to say that because Dead Soxy, hey, DEADSOXY.com. Go check them out. My God, do you need no-shows right now like nobody's business. They are the only thing that can make life bearable in this humidity-filled mess. Josh, I guarantee you don't have humidity in Houston like we're having right now. I mean, it is like literally your body just starts oozing gases and sweat as soon as you walk outside. It's terrible.
It rains every night here.
It rains, so we got all this humidity. It's like, I don't know, go look on the thing and see what the humidity is right now. But no, Dead Soxies, no shows, make life bearable. You can get some of those slip-on socks. Like I got some Kohans lately that I'm wearing with the no shows, and they're fantastic. DEADSOXY. Go to the website, type in the promo code SCOOP. You're going to get 25% off your entire order, even sale items. Go get yourself some of the Maker Bayfields. Those are still there. The Crimson Colorway collection. Go check it out. Just great stuff. Stock up for game day when it won't be as humid. It'll just be a little hot. But man, go get like 6 pairs of no-shows, or maybe 7. So you at least just have 1 pair for every day of the week until you can wash those bad boys. But yeah, they're getting me through life right now. You need them. Go get them. DeadSoxy.com, DEADSOXY.com, promo code SCOOP. Get 25% off your entire order. And as always, stay Soxy. By the way, those great shoes that Stutzman and Dylan Gabriel had over the weekend, or yesterday.
Custom, I believe.
Can you really call those Louis Vuittons, though? Because they're just painted the Louis Vuitton logo on Nikes.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm usually a big shoe guy, but I really don't know how those are made. But I bet they're expensive.
I'm sure they're not cheap, yeah.
He's killing the NIL game, Dylan Gabriel. You can say whatever you want about him as a quarterback. He's killing it in the NIL game.
Well, and the stuff he's doing with the jerseys for his high school is really cool. Not just the football team, but hearing him tell the stories about like how kids would practice without socks and stuff when he was in high school. Like that's just a great, great gesture on his part.
Did you guys sense, I mean, you guys were there last year. Did you guys sense that he is, I don't know if embracing is the right term, but it seems like he's more comfortable maybe in his 100%. Role?
Yeah. 100%. I think he's embraced it since the very first day, but it's about gaining that comfort level that we start to see in the Cheez-It Bowl and through his personality throughout the winter with the memes and the gifts. It's like, this is who he really is, and now he's ready to show, why this is going to be his team completely in 2023.
I think he found a little bit of confidence too. I mean, it's obvious when you start playing better on the field, you're going to have a little bit more confidence. And I think that he found that at the end of the year last year. Like, he played really well in the Tech game. They got beat. Played really well in the Florida State game.
Yeah.
That was the best game that he's played in an Oklahoma uniform, probably.
Yeah, I mean, and like you said, showing the emotion, fans love that shit, man. I mean, that's Baker. They want to see Jalen Hurts, as much of a robot as he was off the field, he did show emotion on the field. I mean, remember that Baylor game when he got his visor just got shattered and he popped up and he would get beat up, but I mean, he showed emotion on the field. And I think Dylan was such a guy that people focused on the negative, and he never really gave him a reason with his emotional play or just showing any emotion. Like, I think people felt like he was a little robotic, and it's not fair because people are like, well, he doesn't care that much if you're not showing emotion.
And I think too, and this kind of goes to a bigger question about the offense, and he talked about this a little bit, is I think it's going to look a little different. Not that they're going to change, completely what they're doing schematically, and I still think they're going to go fast, but I do think there's an element of what they're doing on third down, fourth down. That seems to be a huge emphasis of something they looked at this offseason.
Finishing.
I think that I was just reading the Athletic article by Max Olson. I don't know if you guys read that, but he has this great stat in there that, did you know that OU faced 2nd and 8 or more 171 times this year? Only 7 other teams in college football faced more 2nd and 8 or longer in football. So they were facing, they were always in these 3rd and long, 2nd and long type situations, and then they were just not good on 3rd and 4th down in short situations. I think that's a situation they have to fix this year.
I can't tell you how many times I went, just going back and logging all the game clips and looking at the Oklahoma State second half, how many times they had 2nd and 1, 3rd and 1, and didn't pick it up. And didn't even come close, losing yards.
And I think that might come back to one of those things where, Jeff Lebby, he's been a few different places. I mean, he was his first offensive coordinator job at UCF. Did he get high? Was he the assistant? Because Kendall would have been the offensive coordinator when he was there most of the time.
Sounds right to me.
I think that's right.
So, he's been to...
No, he was OC at Southeastern.
Southeastern.
That was his first.
Okay.
In Lakeland, Florida. And then he was QB and passing game in 18 and then took over as OC in 19 at UCF.
Okay, so he's still a relatively young coordinator. And, the tempo thing, it's something he believes in. We've seen it work. We saw Kevin Wilson implement that in 2009 and lead, at the time it was the best offense the college football had ever seen or 2008 when Sam was a sophomore, right? So, I get the up-tempo stuff. Here's the thing is Jeff Lebby, a relatively young coach, still doesn't know everything, but he knows offense. If you're going to go fast, you have to run plays that you can execute. And when you have 3 straight plays and they don't work, that's a lot on you. You have to know, we can't call that play. It doesn't have a good chance of working. Stick with the plays that are going to work when you go up tempo. Otherwise, it's going to look like it did last year all over again.
They had, I counted this. I think I said this on a previous pod maybe, but I went back and counted
up the minutes, I remember, during the offseason.
It was 32 times they had a possession less than 1 minute. And on 17 of those, they did not score on those possessions. So there's obviously possessions that they scored,
explosive plays. Yeah.
But, and I asked Brent about that yesterday, and I don't know if he really appreciated it.
He didn't care for it, man.
He didn't really appreciate the question. I just, they played, I think it was the 3rd most snaps of any team on defense in college football last year. And a large part of that's, one, they didn't get off the field great on 3rd down at times. But the other part of that is the offense was going so fast that they had the time of possession was so high. And I asked him that, and he just was very blunt and said, we're looking at all the things, and hopefully we're better at complementing each other next year. So I don't know if that's a sign of they know that they need to slow down at times.
Stop telling me this.
Yeah, or is it a sign that they're not going to fix it? So I think that's going to be really interesting. I do think they're going to run the ball a lot more. I think we're going to see more of what they did in the bowl game, which was run the ball, and they did slow things down at times. That was the only game last year that they did not have a single possession under 1 minute. So I do think that that's something that we'll see. Whereas like the Oklahoma State game, Eddie mentioned earlier, I think that was the highest one they had.
So
I think
joke of a second half.
I think it was 6 or 7 1-minute possessions they had in that game, which is just absurd. Anyways.
So what you're saying basically is Brent hates you.
No, I don't think he hates me. I mean, he shook my hand afterwards.
It's like, stop asking this question, Stoya.
I did. I asked
it.
him. I think I asked him the efficiency of complimenting each other like 3 times because I was looking for a different answer, and finally he was just like, "Look, we know we need to be better at complimenting each other." And he also was very open about the offense. Said, "Hey, you need to be better on 3rd down, 4th down, red zone, finishing at the end of games." I think that was another emphasis that we haven't touched on yet, but. Him talking about the fourth quarter.
Fourth quarter.
You look back at specifically the Texas Tech game, West Virginia, Baylor, Kansas State. They couldn't stop anybody at the end of the games, and they couldn't score when they absolutely needed to at the end of games. So I think bringing in more competitive depth will help them when it comes down to those close games.
That was definitely the buzzword of the day: competitive depth.
Yep. That and efficiency, which I think they play hand in hand.
Sure.
He did get a question about Justin Blackman. Did you guys hear that question?
Yeah. And
he was like, why are you asking
me this?
Oh my God.
Like the way that Brent looked at whoever, was it Ben or somebody that was asking it?
It was an Oklahoma State writer.
He's going into the Oklahoma State Hall of Fame.
Okay.
But I think the way that he asked it, I think for a second Brent thought he died.
Yeah.
Like
it was
a very weird, but he had a great quote about him. He said that he was one of the only players that he's ever game plan against that is like, we have to take this guy off the field. We have to eliminate him.
All right. Any other thing you want to hit on about Big 12 Media Days before we
I don't
talk to
think
Joshua
so.
about recruiting?
I don't think so. I do think that everybody represented themselves well. I don't know how you could go down there and not represent yourself well in front of the media, but all the right things were said. But, here we are, some 20 days away from the start of camp. It really doesn't.
We didn't get that. I thought we
doesn't
might
mean
get
much.
the start of camp day. But
August 3rd.
August 3rd.
Okay.
There we go.
There you go.
I think Stutzman told us that.
Okay.
All right.
At one point.
Wasn't Brent. It was Stutzman.
I think.
Mike Houck's going to kill him now. No. Well, Josh, a couple of commitments, and you got into a little bit of a Christopher Fitzpatrick, who's been on our pod before. I think you sent him into a tizzy. I don't know if he was on some gummies last night or what was going on, but he's the guy that's done the Mike Hosty documentary that's gotten rave reviews, won a lot of awards all over the country. But the July 20th thing from David Stone just sent everybody into a tizzy, and you tried to explain it, and it's still everybody was pissed off.
I can tell you that I am completely unaware that I sent anyone into a tizzy with that. I had no idea that was now on our board, I get that I just crap on everyone's dreams, and so that's my job. But I had no idea that anyone was upset with me about that news. I guess I need more information on that.
Is this and this?
It was just him being an old man. I mean, I told him stop being an old man.
Screaming at the clouds type deal. Has this past week with Devon Mitchell, obviously, and then you go to yesterday with Jaden Jackson, it feels like this is one of the biggest kind of recruiting weeks that Oklahoma's had in a while. But I don't think that are people realizing how big of deals these both things are?
I don't think so, because I think a lot of that has to do with they don't see dominoes starting to fall in place. It feels like I don't know, and I can put it in these terms. I went and saw Mission Impossible this week, the new one, and it's great for those wondering. But anytime you see a movie where they stick a key in the lock and then it goes inside the lock and you can see the tumblers fall, that's kind of what it feels like. The door's starting to open. You're starting to see all the things fall in place for Oklahoma that need to happen. I mean, guys, I can't tell you how many people I talked to that were like, David Stone had a role in this. what does that tell you about David Stone? Like, I don't know how long he'll go on with all of this, but like his good friend Xavier Robinson's in the class. Devon Mitchell's talking about recruiting him in the story that we wrote, and David has acknowledged him several times. David is in the commitment chat of Jaden Jackson yesterday. Like, he is so arms deep in this that, like, I just don't know what people think is going to happen. So whatever it is with David Stone, just be patient, let it happen. And then you start looking at all the guys that Devon Mitchell's connected to, all the guys he's going to start being involved with. And I just think there's a lot that we kind of, I think I broke a little bit last week. It's almost like it's got to happen sooner or later. I don't know when, but it does. I understand why fans wonder. Now you're starting to see that momentum starting to build that we had been expecting, maybe 10 days later than we anticipated it.
And Josh, I want to go back to Mitchell. How big of a deal is it that he's going to not be 2025, but that he is going to reclassify and be 2024?
Guys, I mean, you know it as well as I do. That tight end room needs a massive influx of talent, and you're going to struggle to find a guy, regardless of where he's ranked. I know the updated ranking didn't meet up to OU fan standards, and usually I give him a hard time. I get it. Like, he's a better player than where he's currently ranked. I don't think there's any question on any of our minds that have seen him in person. I think that will be remedied in time. The thing I want to explain to people with that, and Bob, I absolutely will answer your question, but the thing I want to explain is that basically the rankings were done. They were entered, everything was finished, and then Devon Mitchell announces on Saturday evening that he's going to reclassify to 2024, so they have to go in and reshuffle everything. And I get, it's one player, you just move him in. It's not that simple. So I expect in the next go around you'll see a little bit cleaner ranking and a little bit more in line with where I think he is from a talent perspective. But to Bob's question, this is a huge win for OU. It's a huge win for Joe John Finley. You can't put all the eggs in the basket of Devon Mitchell that they did and not land Devon Mitchell. So if you're gonna gamble that, it's fine if you win, and they did. So, like, great, because I would take him over any of the tight ends that you could say they lost and all the effort they put into him. So, okay, fair play. But if it hadn't gone well, then obviously that's a huge gamble and you lost, and that's a real problem. So I love what he brings. I mean, you're talking about a guy that is 6'4", 240. He's going to show up to college carrying the weight he needs to do anything OU wants him to do. It's just going to be him getting stronger, doing all the physical maturation stuff that he'll need to do. But guys, I mean, I don't think it's crazy to say he's the most talented tight end Oklahoma has signed probably since Jermaine Gresham, or, has committed, assuming he'll sign.
You look at Mitchell, I think a lot of us expected him to pick OU last Saturday. Jaden Jackson, though, I would even say as late as Tuesday, was not expecting anything. How did this all come together throughout the course of the week?
So I got a call from a Texas source, and I don't want to out them, so I won't say the name. It's not one to give them credit. It was a conversation that we were just kind of having privately, and it was like, I think you might want to check around, because, I mean, I'll be honest, guys, I had turned my radar off on Jaden Jackson. I wasn't worried about it. I wasn't thinking about it. There was nothing that told me that was a big concern. And I said, well, okay. And so I checked with Ohio State sources, and they're like, yeah, Oklahoma's hanging around, but Ohio State still thinks it's Ohio State. I'm like, okay, so wait a little bit longer. And again, like I hear from another Texas guy, it's like, hey, maybe you want to check. So I started making some calls, and it's like, yeah, OU's got a chance here. Like it was all just real. Like it kind of felt probably not unlike Miami sources did about Devon Mitchell last week. It was just kind of like, it sounds like Miami's making a run here, but it's been OU for so long. Let's not assume too much. But as time went on, it was just like, no, they've done this thing. And we were pretty honest about what happened with David Hicks. And I certainly don't want to say that's all of it. I think Oklahoma did a good job. Todd Bates deserves a lot of credit. But, we've talked last week, and we've talked some on the board and other places about OU seeming to have a renewed presence in NIL, and that was a role here. Like, I don't want there to be any mistake. Oklahoma seems to be pivoting in that direction of being more willing to do what needs to be done to get the guys they need to get. And I think OU fans shouldn't take any shame in that. We keep talking about that's the rules. Those are the rules. And it seems like OU is willing to play by them. And with as many big decisions as are coming up over the next month or so for Oklahoma, the Taylor Tatums, Williams Nwaneri, like you go down the list, the possibility of David Stone, that's got to make an OU fan feel good, because that's the stuff. That's how you close some of these guys, in my opinion.
And that's why, I mean, I mentioned it earlier, drinking the Kool-Aid of Brent. It's not just about this season, but some of the stuff that I heard yesterday about what OU's doing in the NIL game, and obviously now they're starting to land some of these recruits, it just feels like they are heading in the right direction in terms of what they're doing, and they're willing to play that game. And I know that they're trying to get creative in what they're doing in NIL, and I think players are noticing that. I mean, it sounds like, I mean, Josh just said that it played a factor in Jaden Jackson. I'm assuming it'll play a factor with guys going forward too.
It also felt like the Jaden Jackson news, Josh, was almost something of like percentage chances. I guess better way to ask this. If OU is in the Big 12 still and they're not moving to the SEC, do they have any chance with Jaden Jackson?
10%, maybe.
Yeah.
Like maybe. I mean, it's just, there's no question. I mean, and I think, guys, that's one of the interesting things that I keep wondering about is when do these kids, like when does it become cemented in their mind, Oklahoma's an SEC team? For these recruits, they will never play in the Big 12. Like Oklahoma is an SEC team for all purposes for them. Like, and I think as much as you can know that, it's another thing to put it to your mind. Like, I'm going to play the same competition at Oklahoma that I would at Georgia or Tennessee or any other school that you want to talk about. Like, there's nobody that Oklahoma's recruiting in a big battle against right now that can say you're not going to be as ready for the NFL because of the competition you face that, because you go to Oklahoma. Like, there's nobody that can make that argument anymore. It is dead. And I think that is a key point here and something that has to be kept in mind. And I couldn't agree more. Like with something, George was saying, it feels like there has been a shift in the last, I would say last month. Like I don't know. I've heard rumors of some meetings, some kind of powwows amongst the staff. Like I don't know those to be fact. I'm just telling you, these are things I've heard of. You combine what we can do, what we can bring to bear in the NIL market and the Soul mission, and you put those things together, there's no school in the country that brings those kind of things that can really match, so these kids don't have to choose one or the other. They can have both.
You mentioned riding the wave. I think that wave's going to continue going into next week. We learned about the commitment date for Taylor Tatum. That'll be next Friday. But even before then, we got Zion Raggins looking to make his choice Tuesday. Is OU about to add its fifth receiver in this class?
It sure looks that way to me. I've heard nothing to make me feel like that won't be the case. Again, this is a 10 300-meter guy. I think Oklahoma just sees that as how many opportunities are you going to get to go get a guy like that and do it in the state of Georgia where you want to have inroads, you want to have relationships. Like, it's kind of one of those things where if he was from Delaware, I don't know, maybe it goes differently. But being a kid from Georgia, you want to be able to go in there. You want to have those coaches feel comfortable that, hey, if Brent Venables makes my guy an offer, he's going to stand behind it. And I think that has importance. But at the same time, I don't want anybody to think it's just that. This is an explosive player that they like a lot. And you can, combine him with a guy like KJ Daniels and then some of the size you have with Ivan Carrion, Dozie Ezekama. I mean, you're hoping that's enough to kind of bolster your receiver room until you get in that 2025 class where you already have an elite guy committed in Grayson Harris, and you're chasing guys like DeCorian Moore and Andrew Marsh and really some of the elite receivers in the country in that class.
Where do things stand with Williams Nwaneri? I think I said his name right.
Oh, yeah. I swear, this is one of the really interesting things, because a couple of days ago, I was talking to a Missouri source that Kerry knows well, and we were having a conversation. And this is part of what I'm talking about when I talk about this NIL stuff. Like when you talk to people at Georgia and you talk to people at Missouri, they'll say Oklahoma is bringing some credit to bear here. Like, they are absolutely doing everything they can to make sure Williams Nwaneri ends up in Norman. And I know last year with Caden Green, Missouri was trying to drop a bag. And from what I'm told, they are. It's a real question of whether they can do what OU is trying to do. Like, I mean, for an in-state kid, number one player in the country. I mean, you think Missouri's going to – there's no player that could ever be a higher priority for them than Williams Nwaneri, and I don't know that they can meet OU. And then so if you talk about that, what's Missouri got to hold over OU's head? Not the SEC. I mean, it's location. That's the only thing that they can say that carries any real weight. And, I mean, he's a 2-hour drive from Columbia or a 45-minute flight from Oklahoma. Like, I don't know how much that's really going to play for a kid from the Midlands. But, of course, Georgia's still there. And Georgia does have bullets to fire that we all know are very meaningful in any recruitment. But if I'm picking today, I'm picking Oklahoma. Like, I still think they're the choice. I think it's really tight. This is not a guy that I'm going to say I knew all along. Like, I believe it to be true, but I'm not trying to say that because I don't think anybody knows. I think the world of Rusty Manziel at our Georgia site. I think he's as good a recruiting insider as you'll find in our business, and there's no Georgia's getting him. Like, it's not that at all. Like, this is a dogfight down to the end. We're expecting it to be August 1st. There's been some comments from Jamar Mosey and even Williams to some degree that's what's going to happen. But one of the things that I will say is interesting. I don't think I can talk enough about Williams Nwaneri that anybody's going to get bored as far as listeners. But I will say, I was talking to a Georgia source, I guess late last week, and there was a conversation about things have gone pretty quiet around Georgia on him. And he was saying when they get to that point, it's either they've won him or they've lost him. And they kind of know. And I sure don't think they've won him from what I can say. So like, I know talking to several people, Georgia people think OU and Georgia are battling. Missouri thinks it's OU and Missouri. OU, I think, is a little more like it's just a free-for-all. Like, it's a fight. I haven't heard, like, they think Georgia's ahead or Missouri's ahead. Like, I don't get that impression. So I always come back to, like, who does everyone think are the contenders? And OU is the only constant for all three schools. And I think that it may not be the end-all. And, again, I don't want to say I'm extremely confident in anything. But it's part of the reasoning that I think OU is the bet right now.
Josh, if Williams doesn't go August 1st, does that mean anything?
I don't think so. Like, I don't really – I wouldn't read too much into that. Now, I will say we are getting to that point in time where, because and you and I have talked about this a couple times on the pod, Bob, like where – coming out of that Georgia visit, you thought, okay, the farther you get away from that, the better it is. We're kind of past that now. Like, there's no post-visit high still happening a month later. Like, I don't think that's the question here. And I think like I said, with Jaden Jackson making his decision, David Stone circling around, and I know Williams is aware of him, and those guys talk, and I know there are several other guys that Oklahoma wants to have in this class, Nigel Smith. I mean, they're all very aware of one another. So I think if you could get that first domino to fall, like, 'cause you could argue that, okay, maybe on August 1st it would be somebody else. But then on August 20th, before his season opener, David Stone picks Oklahoma. Does that give a little more legitimacy to Williams saying, okay, I'm going to pick Oklahoma. David and I are going to be there with PJ and Jaden Jackson. And this defensive line room all of a sudden goes from, well, I've got to go in there and be the guy, to I'm one of 5 or 6 guys in this defensive line room that has very real NFL potential. You could argue that either way, but the way I feel like it's trending right now, I think if he goes August 1st, it's probably better for Oklahoma.
I'm going to go to quarterback. I thought maybe after Samaj Jones picked the Bearcats that Jeff Lebby and them would cool off on his second quarterback for the 2024 class, but they haven't. Offered Trevor Jackson earlier this week. I know it's very early in this process, but any initial thoughts?
I'm with you. I'm surprised. I thought Samaj was just a guy where they said, oh, he's so talented. He's such a gifted runner. We could do some interesting things with him even from word go. Like we could there's a lot of possibilities there for Jeff Lebby. Now, at the same time, I say I'm surprised because I just thought, okay, they'll go to the portal. They'll go do something. Guys, they're going to have 2 scholarship quarterbacks next year. Next year, with a very real chance that neither one of them has ever started a college game. Like, that's crazy. Like, that is a wild thing. And not that a high school quarterback's going to fix that, but the more bodies you get in there, the more competition you can create. And frankly, the fewer throws you put on Jackson Arnold, Michael Hawkins' arms in practice. I mean, somebody's got to throw to these 5 wide receivers in the 2024 class. So I think there's something to be said for bringing in, and this is the kind of guy that makes sense. Like, bring in a big athletic guy. Let's see how it works out. And if he leaves in a year or two, which is, I think we all know, is a very high probability with any quarterback you bring in in this era of recruiting. So it makes some sense, and I expect, even if it's not him, maybe there's another guy, because I know they are still monitoring several others. There's with what we've seen happen at Northwestern, they've got a quarterback commitment that I kind of wonder, does OU kick the tires there a little bit? It's as much a numbers game as it is anything, but I think there's no question that there's probably 2 more quarterbacks added to this roster between now and this time next year that'll probably both be scholarship guys. So I just think it's almost got to happen because, just from running a normal practice, you've got to have some more bodies.
Final thing for me would be, we are 2 weeks away from, are they going to call it the party at the Palace again, or whatever they're going to phrase it? Is this visit list starting to come together, and what seems to be the priority this time around?
Well, what's interesting is they're going to have 2 events, and I don't know that I've talked a lot about this. I know I've mentioned it, I think, in a scoop maybe a week or 2 ago. They're going to have a midweek on July 26th that is like 2025 and 2026 guys. I think the first a lot of people knew of it was yesterday. Connor Quintero, the 2026 quarterback from Stillwater, tweeted that he was going to be on campus on the 26th. And he's one of several 26s I've already confirmed. The Chase Lofton kid who picked up an offer at camp, he'll be there. Javion Osborne, another kid that picked up an offer. I would expect Caden Jones, Evanson Malaska, some of those guys as well. But you look at the 2025 list, obviously Kevin Sperry, but then you've got Michael Fasusi, you've got Marcus James, you've got Terrence Edwards coming in for Virginia. That people don't talk a lot about him. He's been on campus like 4 times, like since he was a freshman in high school, and loves Jay Valai and Brent and the whole crew. So he's a guy that more people need to talk about. I'm told Jonah Williams, the big-time safety from Galveston, is going to come back up, who guy lives like 30 minutes from me, and he and I had talked, and I kind of thought OU was going to be an outsider. But when he made that trip up, he loved it. He really likes Brandon Hall. We're seeing more of Brandon Hall being just an outstanding recruiter that these kids really seem to connect to. Andrew Marsh is expected to be there. One of the interesting ones, Isaiah Mosey is going to be there. Does Isaiah Mosey come up with his dad and hang around and, I don't know, maybe bring a Lee Summit North teammate with him or two, because Kamori Moore is coming as well. I mean, does the whole Lee Summit North come down and spend the weekend in Norman right before Williams-Winery's expected commitment on July 1st? I don't know, but it's an interesting thing to consider, especially when you look at what happened last year with Oklahoma coming out of that with all the David Hicks momentum, all the Colton Vosick momentum, and obviously Oklahoma will hope it lasts to December a little better than last year, but there's no question the party was a huge thing, and that will be on Friday night, where it's been harder to confirm names because you're getting a lot of these guys that are very close to the decision. Like Taylor Tatum doesn't want to tell me if he's going there because he's going to announce on the 21st, and it's kind of a dead giveaway. Like if he's coming, then obviously we kind of know what he's going to do next Friday. If he's not, then, we kind of know there's at least some chance that maybe it's going to go differently. So
is it going to be hard because,
go ahead.
what official visits haven't been used at this point?
And that's part of it too, is my understanding, Bob, is that, and I need to look at the calendar, but that was the whole deal with Casey Poe. Casey Poe was supposed to do his official on this weekend and was informed he could not. I don't know if that can even be used as such. And I looked and I thought I'd verified that, but now I'm like, I'm about 70% that I really dotted my I's on that.
If you can visit the campus, why could you not official visit? Because that's
What weekend?
The final weekend of this
July
month.
28th, right there before the start of camp.
Would players go home that weekend? Although I asked Danny yesterday, and he has no plans of going home. So I guess that's not a good excuse.
That's because Danny's dedicated now. He's
true.
He's in the game.
He's in the book.
That last week of July is the only week that's open. Then August is a complete dead period too. But I was confused. Well, I remember when you said that about Casey, I was like, that doesn't sound right. If you can show up for these events, can't you make an official visit?
That's what I thought. Like, Bob, it's been a weird thing. Like, I will say, I think part of it was Casey didn't want to wait that long to make his decision, so it kind of, but at the same time, I got the impression that was OU's belief as well, that couldn't be used that way. So I need to check with a few people and verify that. But so far, I've heard nothing that makes me think there's official visits happening. A good example is Josh Iasosa, the new offensive line offer from Edmond Santa Fe. He is going to be there at the party at the Palace, but he's waiting to take his official visit for a game. So I don't know what to make of that. Like, I don't know how to read that situation, but he would seem to indicate that Oklahoma is not planning to do official visits on this weekend.
All right. By the way, want to remind you guys, Big 12 Media Day coverage, sponsored in part by Quick Trip, who is, been a good friend of ours for a while. George, being from the Tulsa area, has always been he's kind of like a mini ambassador that doesn't get paid to
I love Quick
tell people
Trip.
how much he loves them.
I would die for
I
that
keep
gas
telling you,
station.
shut up until you're getting paid. No, I love Quick. I mean, I grew up, when I was little, in southeast Kansas. We had a Quick Trip in town. And
I stopped and got 4 taquitos on my way home yesterday. 4 of them.
So you don't go to In-N-Out, you go to Quick Trip.
I go to Quick Trip, baby. That place rocks.
So anyway, we're going to be doing some stuff this coming week too, going to SEC Media Days with them. They are starting to open up a lot of stores in the Southeast, some smaller, I can't remember what Joseph told me that they were called, but like kind of not pop-ups, but just smaller gas stations all throughout the Southeast. And they're coming to Oklahoma City too. So that's very, very exciting. Hopefully plans will be in the Norman Moore area at some point, but Oklahoma City, I know out kind of by the Turnpike, heading over to Tulsa. I think, Eddie, isn't that kind of where the first one's going to be? Or OKC Talk said somewhere out there at some point.
Yeah, it's going to be on Broadway Extension and I guess I-35 and Hefner.
Yeah, okay.
Just south of what's it called? Frontier City.
Frontier City. Yeah.
Okay.
And
Yeah.
the other one's going to be down in Moore. They just announced that. I
Okay,
think
yeah,
I
yeah.
want to say like within the last couple days.
Yeah. Maybe we should go to the grand opening.
Cut the ribbon.
cut the ribbon.
Can we
That's
cut the
what I'm saying.
ribbon?
If you keep making sweet, videos like the one you did the other day, they might invite us.
All right. Well, that's a deal. I'll be there.
I am I'm excited about the partnership because we're doing more, kind of TikTok-y type stuff, which I'm learning how to use CapCut, which is a mobile video editing thing, which is pretty cool. We can go over it later, Eddie. It's pretty cool. But no, we're doing all this stuff with Quick Trip. Kind of, it's almost like it's to help them, but it's also to kind of help us kind of build our social media game as well. And we're going to have more stuff coming from our trip to Nashville with the SEC. So keep an eye out for that. But Quick Trip, go check them out if they're in your area. You don't have to tell them Sooner Scoop sent you, but I don't know. Just yell out, free Lindsay Street or something when you get your order. That might be kind of cool. And also, I was told some activity might be brewing on the tailgating scene. Nothing official. And I'm always told, make sure you tell them the athletic department's not in charge of that. Whatever. Wink, wink. No, but I think maybe the university is starting to kind of look at something.
I heard that we will have an announcement on that sometime in the next month before kickoff.
I like it.
That's
I like that.
Okay.
I like that.
So anyway, also SoonerScoopStore.com. We are kind of in flux. I know we've got some orders in today, but we're a little slow on the take right now because we've had the new carpet installed and we're kind of putting this place back together. But go check out SoonerScoopStore.com. Get you some unofficial 40 merch or Lindsay Street merch, what have you. Get a hat, whatever you want to get, whatever's there. We still got some of the softball, eat, sleep, run, roll, repeat shirts left. So anyway, and that fund is still just sitting around, just waiting to be used. I mean, hell, it might be next year until it happens. But there's a lot of stuff going on the NIL front, as George said. I was reading the Castiglione story with On3 while you guys were talking recruiting. Sorry, Josh, I do it too. There's some really interesting stuff in there. And your Q&A, really, if you've had questions about the football facilities, that turnip seed, how
Correct.
much of that is all intertwined or not intertwined, go read that. And I'm sure you're still going to go to QAnon and get your news from there on that. But you should go read George's Q&A. So that's going to do it, folks. Eddie's got one more thing to
Real
add.
quick, I have an announcement.
Sure.
I broke down this morning. I had a mental breakdown. I bought Twitter Blue.
I heard. I saw.
So after I saw that you did
I
it,
had to. I had to.
Once you
I've
put
been
the
telling George, just wait. Just wait.
I couldn't. It's $84.
wait.
I don't care.
84. How did you get it for 84? Mine says 113.
I don't know.
Ooh.
Because I was invited into the program, I think, way back when.
Your ass should get it for free.
You should, yeah.
I had to. I got so frustrated over the last couple of days trying to tweet from TweetDeck
yeah.
that I was just like, I can't do this anymore. I have to get it.
Twitter has
Yeah.
its own scheduling
So it's embarrassing. You can sue me.
I woke up and I saw your message that you bought it. And so I was like, screw it, I'm buying it too. and
you bought it?
Well, they wouldn't let me because I changed my profile
Changed his
picture in the last
profile
couple
picture.
days to me asking
it has
your
to be
mark
30
the questions.
days.
It's like, I think it's like you've changed it in a few days, try again later is what it told me.
I think
was
it's
like, what the
30 days.
Why would they, but see, this is where Twitter's dumb. Why would they not just take my money? I'm willing to give you $100 right now and they just won't take it. But whatever.
It's a weird.
I'll buy it
place.
eventually.
Because they're super worried about authenticity, George.
Yeah, whatever. I knew I was going to pull the trigger eventually. I have no problem pulling it. Whatever.
Well, see, and here's
use
the deal.
Twitter
Like,
too much.
If Elon just made a small business deal, like they only have one thing as a business to get yourself verified or business verified, and then I could verify all of you guys and pay for you guys. Here's how much it costs though. It costs $1,000 a month. Like that's insane.
That's crazy.
That's insane.
$84 for a year is-
It's not that bad.
Take it from me.
We're not Microsoft. We're not
$7 a month.
Chick-fil-A.
and
I
you
mean,
know-
give us like a plan like $250 a year. I'll pay that. It's fine. And then let me buy everyone, their check marks that is affiliated with Sooner Scoop. I mean, that's 5 of us. Maybe if you charge $15 a month, I'm fine with that. But $50 a month is what they charge after you pay the $1,000 a month to be a business.
Yeah.
So you're paying $1,250 a month just so we can have a stupid Look, I don't want Twitter to fail. We have 84,000 followers at Sooner Scoop. It's a huge platform for us. So I get pissed off when Elon does stupid stuff like, rate limit and stuff like that. Like, just don't kill it, Elon. You can mess around, do whatever, but make things reasonable. Let's don't $1,000 a month. I mean,
has anyone had it happen again? I just had it that very first day.
I haven't had the rate limit,
Exactly.
but the TweetDeck stuff is
that's definitely. I've been hearing about that.
That's the only way that I really truly use Twitter. I obviously scroll on my phone and stuff, but to post stories and to post things on Scoop and all that kind of stuff, it's just it's tough.
Yeah.
I would rather put my energy into TikTok than Threads.
Threads is awful. I'm sorry. I know there's people out there that are like, well, it's
simplified.
Yeah, it's dog shit. I'm sorry.
Until it's not a for you, user experience. That's all you get.
Also, no one's on there. No one's on there. Like, I got on there, and there's a ton of sports journalists are on there because that's what we do. Is we join the new media platform and think it's cool, but it's not. It's terrible. And
I haven't joined. I won't do it yet.
I mean,
do you have an Instagram? You have to have an Instagram to join.
And that's the other thing. If you delete your Threads account, it deletes your Instagram account. And Mark Zuckerberg, what people don't realize, Elon is bad. Mark Zuckerberg is just as bad, if not worse. He's trying to own all of the media outlets, which is not that's not what we want. We don't want somebody just control.
The Athletic is proving that that's not what you want. Yes.
Yeah, I mean, it's all stupid, but we need Twitter, and I agree with that. I'm gonna buy it. As soon as they let me buy it, I'm gonna buy it.
I'm gonna do it.
I'm gonna buy Twitter.
We're such suckers. I know that I am. The other thing,
I'm spending all my extra money on arcade games.
The other thing that I wanted to bring up, sad news from a Campus Corner neighbor. It's official. The service station is closing.
I know. I knew that.
We talked about it with a visitor that came by last week.
Yeah.
We ate there just a month ago, didn't we?
I know.
And it wasn't good.
Yeah, it wasn't.
Well, I mean, we can probably understand why they're closing.
Yeah.
But it is sad news. I think
it's more
truly like a staple of Campus Corner, I feel like.
Yeah, I think the owner, though, he's like, it's time. It's time. I'm going to retire. I'm going to give it up. Problem is hopefully somebody buys it and does. Have you noticed over on Webster, they're redoing that building on Main Street? I'm really curious what that is. It's like a big. It's on the corner of Webster and Main. Webster turns into Asp, which is us.
Right. I don't think I have.
They're doing this huge project over there. Somebody's building something cool. I want to know.
I mean,
what
we've
it is.
talked about it before, but the influx of cash that is being spent right now, just in Norman in general.
Townhomes. I mean,
the townhomes is unbelievable.
The thing on Boyd, that's those apartments that sandwich. It looks like the up house in between those two now, and it was like a brand new big. They bulldozed a house and they built a double story house, a 2-story house. Now it's sandwiched in between these two apartments where it takes every square foot of the lot that they're sitting on, and it's just two giant rectangles that are.
I don't even think I've drove over there in a second.
Apartments. But yeah, I mean, the thing I like about the stuff they're doing over by the railroad tracks is that stuff looks cool. It's updated, it's modern, it's not garish, it looks good.
There's preparations being made for what's to come in 2024. I think it's pretty obvious around town.
Need a sky bridge.
I was going to say something else too, but I decided not to.
I think that's a good thing, judging by all the things they're flying around right now. Okay, that's going to do it. We'll be back. It is SEC Media Days. We're moving on, folks. We're emotionally moving on to the SEC next week, even though there's still 1 year left to play in this Big 12 conference. So, sorry, Brett. We're not backing you anymore.
We're going to do maybe a pod out in Nashville.
Definitely, with me being out there, and Eddie, has so many things he focuses on, and you do. I can just be out there to kind of help run. I'll say this: much better chance of a 2-pod week next week.
Yeah,
from out there.
It'll be interesting. I really, truly don't know what to expect. I've been to a lot of media days before. Obviously, only Big 12, but
I think it's a lot bigger. The way they spread them out. I was looking at the schedule. I think the media is going to be twice the size in terms of attendance.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
I think it's going to be massive.
Great.
Yeah.
It'll just be fun to just see it, just
Yeah.
so we'll
yeah.
know what
Yeah, 'cause-
next year is going to be
Well,
like.
there is also like this. It's
You have
kind
total
of stressful
freedom.
right?
You have
There's so
freedom
much
to do
stress
whatever
when
the
like
heck you want.
OU goes out because you don't want to necessarily miss anything.
Yeah.
But with this, it's kind of like we're almost freelancing a little bit. That we'll be able to kind of just do whatever.
Yeah. And I think it's going to be
I'm
packed.
excited to see Shane.
I mean, I think we got the last couple hotel rooms, and that's a big hotel that we're staying in, and I think it's going to be full. So.
Yeah.
I'm considering making some back channel calls to see if Josh Heupel hates me or not.
Well, he doesn't know me, so I'll ask him.
I could ask him.
Yeah. I'll throw him some fastballs.
Yeah, it did not end well. That was the bowl game that I didn't even make Eddie go to.
Yep, that was an awkward scene.
That was the beginning of the end of the beginning, kind of.
I mean, I think it was Hoover that wrote the Stoops should resign article after that game. So, me asking Josh Heupel if he was going to be back next year wasn't the worst thing that happened. That
That was just an awkward scene.
The craziest part is it was 9 years ago. You in high school? 2014?
Yes, because I remember watching it with my dad, who was very angry at Josh.
Did he watch
Heupel.
the whole thing or turn it
Yeah,
off?
why would you
Come
keep
on.
watching?
My dad.
I only watched it because I was there. If I was at home, I would have been like, screw this.
This is the same season. My dad's gonna hate that I'm telling the story. That we're at the Baylor game when they got killed at home.
Got
When
booed.
Trevor Knight got
And
paralyzed.
Julian Wilson
there for
got in a
little
fight
bit.
with Mike Stoops on the sidelines.
Yeah, I remember saying to my dad in the fourth quarter, "Let's get out of here." Like, what are we doing? He's like, we stayed at the end. So he's the guy that
I think my dad said that when A&M came and beat OU in like 98 or 97. And it ended up, I think the final score, it was snowing that day. I know that. And it was, I want to say the final score was like 55-13, something like that. Just got their ass kicked.
Mm-hmm. I'm interested to hear like what's Josh. I wonder if Josh Heupel has an opinion on. I'm sure he does. I don't know if he'll voice it on like Brent Venables. I mean, obviously he knows Brent.
Yeah, I don't think he has anything against Brent.
I know, but I just wonder what he'll be like.
Just me.
His demeanor is going to be very interesting because it's not just us. It sounds like there's a good group of Oklahoma media contingent going down
Which
there.
is really weird because I saw Heupel on Bussin' with the Boys, and he could not have had more personality in that thing.
I think that, like, I would hope by now, even as mad as he was about how everything went down and how hurt he was, it's been really good for him. I think it's almost kind of like Brent in a way. He needed to leave. He needed to get out of here
Needed
to
to have some
reinvent
heartbreak.
himself. Yeah, to look. It was like truly one of those look in the mirror moments that kind of turned everything around for his career, and it's obviously worked out extremely well for him. He's turned Tennessee around into something that is a little bit of a respectable program. What a pass they got today too by the NCAA infractions committee.
I have not been able to get
Saw that.
through that, but like over 100 violations.
Over 100 violations, no postseason ban, and Jeremy Pruitt got a 6-year show cause, which is like the longest show cause in the history of show cause.
Well, they're not Oklahoma State basketball, so they got away from it.
Oklahoma State basketball.
They'll be the last team to ever get banned, probably, from
It's
anything.
truly
hope
unbelievable.
so.
It's still unbelievable.
Yeah, it still makes no sense.
Well, there's your OU podcast. We opened with Oklahoma State and we're closing with Oklahoma State.
All right, that's going to do it. We'll be back again next week from Nashville, Tennessee. We should get Jared on the podcast next week.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Do that. We go out to his
Do
house
that.
and do podcasts with
I
him. That'd be
like
cool.
that idea.
All right, maybe it'll happen. We'll see. Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll be back again next week for another edition of the Unofficial 40 podcast right here from SoonersScoop.com.